Welcome to Browngrotta Art's 11th Zoom exhibition and the 9th episode of Art on the Rocks, an exhibition talk through with spirits, Transformation Edition. As many of you know, I'm Rhonda Brown, and for 30 years, my husband Tom Grotta and I have been promoting the work of dozens of international contemporary artists. For our Art in the Barn exhibition this spring, we curated Transformations, Dialogue in Arts and Materials, a focused exploration of materiality featuring more than 79 international artists using traditional media, clay, silk, linen, indigo, and bamboo, and unexpected materials, including steel, stones, bark, seaweed, feathers, and horsehair. Before we immerse ourselves in art, we'll introduce an exhibition-themed libation, No-Proof Apple Tonic, mock or not, in which apple is transformed 4 ways: clarified, reduced, carbonated, crisped. The drink was researched by mixologist Max Fanwick. You can learn more about Max's cocktail and culinary creations at Run, Cook, Sleep, Repeat. Now, to the presentation. We begin with a visual how-to of No-Proof Apple Tonic, mock or not.
Today we're making a drink called the No-Proof Apple Tonic. So we're going to start with just your favorite clarified apple cider. So this could be like a Martinelli's clarified apple cider. This could be, a higher quality apple juice, but you want something that has a fair amount of flavor to it. We're then going to add to 3 ounces of the clarified apple cider, an ounce, really half an ounce, but you can do it to flavor. So based on just how much bite you want in it, of apple cider vinegar, and an ounce to 2 ounces of sparkling water, again, just depending on how sweet you want it. The last piece we're gonna add for sweetness, and we're gonna try and stack it. So we're gonna use a spoon to just create the layer, is a little bit of reduced apple cider. So it's gonna be like a half an ounce. You could even do a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how sweet you want it to be. And what that does is it brings a little bit of caramel notes to the drink, a little bit of complexity. The more you reduce it, the sweeter it will get. Put it on the stove on super low heat for hours. You're gonna take 1/4 gallon of apple cider, and that's gonna end up being just a couple of cups. Now, a really fun way to keep this drink chilled without diluting the flavor once you get the right balance is gonna be to chop up some green apple into pieces and to freeze it and use frozen apple pieces to cool your apple cider drink. Then for the perfect garnish, we'll add a chip of apple or a dehydrated apple, a freeze-dried apple. If you want to make this alcoholic, you could easily add a little bit of apple brandy, an apple vodka, something along those lines. Or, of course, you can always add some gin. Cheers.
Now to the art. Through the works featured in Transformations, we have tried to illustrate how, in inspired hands, materials are magic. Linen becomes landscape, bark builds a narrative, cotton and paper create craggy objects seemingly washed up from the sea. Through artistic alchemy, seaweed becomes an accent, silk becomes sculpture, and steel mesh, wool, and discards. Tablecloths, buff pads, cloth measuring tapes become art. Drawing on curator Glenn Adamson's concept of material intelligence, the deep intuitive knowledge that allows an artist to read a material's property and give it new form, Transformation highlighted how radically different outcomes emerge, even when artists share the same medium. The exhibition made such tension visible. We placed works made of the same materials in conversation so viewers could explore those differences in depth. We highlighted 14 materials and created a bucket category, Unexpected Materials, through which we examined another 8. In this edition of Art on the Rocks, we'll take a look at works made of each of those 22 materials. First up, bark. These baskets, for the most part, are remarkable in the diversity of techniques, types of bark, and geographic origin involved. Clockwise from 12 o'clock, Polly Sutton's work made of Washington State cedar bark. John McQueen's witty comment on the origins of the man in the moon myth made of an unspecified bark. Linda Bill's envelope of poplar. Marion Hildebrand's box of California bay bark. A sculpture of woven pine bark and sticks combined from the Midwest, U.S. by Dorothy Gill Barnes. Slabs of Japanese walnut bark sewn with fibers of maple by Masako Yoshida, and at 11 o'clock, 2 baskets of woven birch bark by Donna Look. The variety, when using bark and branch, is nearly boundless. Here, Lawrence LaBianca's sculpture combines camphor bark and branch with glass, in which a photo of the tree has been embedded, mounted on a steel stand. Markku Kosonen, an ambassador of wood in Finland, layered finished white birch to create an interesting bowl of sorts. Here, in just past dead center, John McQueen has plated elm bark to create a fantastical tree. Silk is another material that lends itself to myriad applications. Here, Ed Rosbach has printed on silk Palms, a work from the 1960s. Kiyomi Iwata created a stunning sculpture of red silk and a wispy wall hanging of kabiso silk. Kabiso refers to silk drawn from the outer layer of the silk cocoon. For years it was considered waste when compared to the smooth filament that makes up the inner cocoon. Since 2008, Nuno, the Japanese fabric manufacturer, has been committed to reducing waste from their spinning and milling processes. One part of that project focuses on making use of kabiso, as Kiyomi Iwata does, instead of discarding it. Here is another example of work, a vessel created from silk waste by Jeanette Linderstee, who is located in Maine. In Camino Sinuoso, Carolina Razaval of Chile has combined raw silk and linen into a fluid sculpture. Paper also offers a host of sculptural possibilities. Clockwise from left, a frame of knots made of hanji, Korean handmade paper by Sung Rim Park of Korea. A 3-dimensional rectangle of washi paper with kanji markings by Naomi Kobayashi of Japan. A boat of unbleached paper by Mirja Winquist of Finland. And a macrame-like object by Federica Luzzi of Italy. Here are paper sculptures by Jennifer Falk Linson of the US and Nori Hatakeyama of Japan. Linson's works, like Undone, incorporate Japanese paper and textile traditions of katagami and katazome. The katagami stencil is recontextualized by exploring its sculptural possibilities, while the hand-carved paperwork is further manipulated through the resist dyeing technique of katazome. Nori Hatakeyama's work is, as titled, a complex object of plaited Japanese paper tape. These artists' engagement with the material is all-encompassing. These are not forms I intentionally designed, Hatakeyama says. Rather, they are forms generated by the material and the method. When the material changes, the form changes too. The forms appear, they come toward me. I feel less that I made them, and more that I was made to make them. Birgit Berkshire makes fringe baskets of paper utilizing the Scandinavian raya technique. When her baskets are hung as woven art basket strings, shadows are an essential feature of the work. Metal can be formed and manipulated in ways that are similar to the ways artists use fibrous materials. Artists in transformations explore lead, pewter, brass, iron, copper, titanium, and gold. In this image, Agneta Hoban has pleated stainless steel mesh interlaced with mica. Kyoko Kumai has also worked with stainless steel, weaving filaments into a wallwork. And separately, she has encased these filaments in glass to create intimate portraits of woven steel. Here, Jinjlaki has taken steel screws, nails, and wire to form a basket, while Kyoko Kumai mixed gold and steel filaments to form a wave. Sulati has woven lead, and in the tall weaving on the right line, which was awarded a Best in Show award from Jack Lenore Larson, Lottie has added pewter. In 2007, Mary Giles began doing wall panels that dealt with her concerns about overpopulation, density, and boundaries. In categories of evidence made of copper and lead, she has lined elongated figures, some clustered closely, others placed at some remove. The work conjures thoughts about connection, community, and identity. An object imbued with energy resulted from Sirocco Tanikawa's combining linked copper and steel. And in Aurora, Kyoko Kumai combined steel and crystal-finished titanium. All of these works in metal have an advantage in that they can be in environments that have a great deal of UV, which is not true of many other fiber works in which dyes are involved. Cultivating and dyeing with indigo is practiced in a host of cultures, including Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Our indigo grouping included a banner of indigo by Hiroyuki Shindo. Shindo first encountered indigo as a student at Kyoto City University of Fine Arts in the late 1960s. An older artisan told Shindo that he was the last of 14 generations of indigo dyers. Shindo was determined to prevent this art form's extinction. Also included on this wall is a multicolored work by U.S. artist James Bassler, who works with natural dyes of all types. Polly Barton is another American who uses indigo. The inspiration for Synapse, Barton says, was a drawing of the shadow cast by her swift, the weaver's tool for unwinding thread from a loose bundle onto a useful, untangled spool. At the time, Barton says, my father had succumbed to Alzheimer's, and the swirls of indigo blues, deep and cloudy, tied and locked into threads of memory, were slipping away. The transformation of abstract ideas into three-dimensional structures like Matrix 2 requires a 12-step process that Korean artist Yoon-Soon Chang has developed, which includes starching, ironing, cutting, and sewing sparsely woven abaca fiber after dyeing it with indigo. Sue Lottie in the UK combined natural linen and indigo-dyed hemp and linen in creating Dictionary, Light Indigo. In Lottie's practice, color feels less applied than absorbed, as though the fiber had always held it within. In Venezuela, Eduardo Portillo and Maria de Villa make indigo works of silk, alpaca, metal threads, and native fibers like moriche. Flax appeared in several of the works we collected from the UK, Belgium, Germany, and Japan, as you can see here. Susie Gillespie and Irina Kolniskova create detailed images with flax thread. Susie Gillespie grows, spins, and weaves the flax she works with at her orchard in the UK. Stephanie Jacques of Belgium created a face of flax fibers. With basketry techniques, I have the opportunity to construct my sculptures around a void, Jacques says. I braid, knot, sew, and assemble my sculptures. In my process, I need a physical relationship with the materials I work with: wicker, thread, plant fibers, wire, raw clay, ink, paper. Jacques draws inspiration from universal know-how, scientific and literary writings, psychoanalysis, and existential questions. Here, Masako Yoshida used flax to stitch together pieces of walnut bark, harvested from her yard in Japan. This group of bamboo works are by 4 Japanese artists and 1 American. Clockwise, Bamboo and Vine by Jiro Yanazawa, 2 works out of different types of bamboo by Hisako Sekijima, a work of bamboo and linen by Nancy Moore-Bess, a sculpture of bamboo and steel by Jiro Yanazawa, and a handled basket by Kogetsu Kosuge. Jiro Yanazawa is involved in all parts of bamboo readiness: growth, harvest, preparation. Here he is teaching at Haystack Mountain School of Craft in Maine. As we explored works for transformations, we were struck by the varied ways artists use metallic threads and finishes. In this image, you see a Mariette Rousseau vermette with metallic threads and optical fiber, 2 Micheline Bouchements that incorporate metallic threads. Both of these artists are from Canada. Also, a sphere by Nora Minkowitz of the US that has been given a gold patina. Beba Osite of Latvia incorporated small metal springs into her multicolored weaving beaches, which glitter when they are caught by the light. Jin Suk So sculpts fine stainless steel mesh into 3-dimensional objects. So, who spends time in both Sweden and Korea, folds, paints, and electroplates to create depth and interest. In Ryuko Mura 1-3, Glenn Kaufman used a complicated technique that combined twill weaving, a surface pattern in silk, composing collages of photo imagery, photo silk screening those onto cloth, and abstracting the imagery further by applying metal leaf. While head of the fiber department at the University of Georgia, Kaufman spent half of each year in Kyoto, leading the study abroad program and doing his own work, which is where he developed this methodology. The completed paper images were ripped apart and reassembled with obvious cracks moving through the works. The resulting views are often architectural, incorporating a grid that recalls Eastern shoji screens or Western window panes. Yunsun Chang's The Moon, the Stars, the Sun uses gold leaf to chart the cosmos. The piece holds particular significance in her practice, as it is one of her earlier works using Teflon mesh. In making it, her understanding and exploration of material and perception deepened. At the time of making the work, she says, I was deeply engaged with the idea of space, how a material could span into and define space through its presence. Chang's works also include an eco-friendly resin that she developed. In this image, works of cotton are highlighted. In the background, Voluma by Mercedes Vicente of Spain. It offers natural references. Shells, the sea, especially the spiral, the shell's internal organization, inspire Vicente. In the lower left, Nora Minkowitz has embodied Sophia's heart in a sculpture of crocheted cotton thread. Hung on the wall are a series of tourbillons made of cotton webbing by Simone Philpin of France. The object in the foreground with apparent cracks and fissures is also by Philpin. Philpin's self-developed technique is based on the meticulous, repetitive folding of strips of unbleached, undecayed, rough cotton, held together by stainless steel pins, through which a universe of forms unfolds, reflecting the natural world. In the 90s, renowned U.S. artist Kei Sekamachi, who will be 99 this year, began making woven knotted necklaces that in some cases incorporate shells and stones. Some of the necklaces utilize the split ply technique that Sekamachi discovered in the 70s when she became interested in the ancient technique used for weaving camel girths. Sekamachi used card weaving to create tubes for others of the necklaces and knotting for still others. Gertrude Halls of Norway creates airy vessels of various sizes and colors out of cotton. Cynthia Shira, an American artist whose work is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the Textile Museum at George Washington University, created this wall hanging of cotton and linen. This combination of works by Toshiko Takeuzu and Yasuhisa Koyama will illustrate how the same input, in this case clay, generates a different output in talented hands. Takeuzu's closed ceramic forms, rounded, glazed, often containing a small stone or rattle and sealed inside, are intimate and quietly mysterious, their surfaces richly colored and their shapes suggesting the human body. Koyama, by contrast, surrenders control to the fire itself. He builds by hand and fires with wood, never applying glaze. Color and surface are entirely the product of ash, movement, and the object's position within the kiln. Where Takeuzu brings clay close, shaping it into vessels that hold secrets, Koyama sends it into an elemental process and receives back something ancient and unpredictable. For the late Scottish basket maker Valerie Pregnell, clay was a coating for a basket made of willow bark and rhododendron. Clay was also a covering for Stephanie Jacques in this vessel of wicker and wood. Sisal is yet another material we explored in transformations. Anna Urbanowicz-Krowaka from Poland uses sisal in palisades, a material that was more easily obtained and often used in Eastern Europe during the Cold War when refined materials like silk and linen were harder to come by. Works by Marion Hildebrand and Mia Olsen that use sisal are different in conception and sensibility. Olsen uses richly dyed sisal. I'm interested in exploring textile fibers, how they are, their properties and characteristics, and what I can do with them, she says. Sisal fiber is flat and shiny, reflecting light beautifully and strengthening the color. Olsen describes it as so interesting to work with, especially when forming three-dimensional pieces. Adela Akers also worked in sisal in creating works like Clear Blue. Willow is remarkably versatile, as you can see in comparing Dale Behenna's architectural grooved white and three-quarter brown willow cones, the human figure of willow coated with gesso by Stephanie Jacques, and the intricately woven two-part basket of split black willow by Esme Hoffman of the Netherlands. John McQueen's Parrots in Of a Feather is a very different execution of willow, as is Canadian artist Don McNutt's sculpture of willow and seagrass. There are three artists that Browngrotta Arts works with for whom horsehair plays an important role. Here, Marion Belinga's Untitled on the left and Marion Kemp's Red Foti on the right. Kemp weaves horsehair. In her work, Belinga makes elements that combine fabric, paper, fish scales, often merged as here with horsehair. Belinga began as a weaver, but found the process too time-consuming and shifted to constructing wallworks in which shadows play an essential role. Later in her career, Adela Akers also incorporated horsehair into her work. Less structured weavings, these incorporated lines of horsehair at regular intervals. Again, the material takes an active role. Even when I don't know the outcome, it is the transformation of the materials by the repetitive hand manipulation that leads me to the final expression, she said. It is always a discovery when reaching the end. Linen is a material often used by fiber artists. Here, it has been woven and then distressed by Chiyoko Tanaka of Japan, woven by Sarah Brennan of the UK, and knotted into two sensuous vessel forms by Carol Shaw Sutton and one spiky tower by Jane Sauer, both of the US. In this work, linen is used to create figures by Mary Giles, some larger, others smaller. Susie Gillespie mixes homegrown, hand-spun linen with antique linen yarn, embroidery thread, beeswax, gesso, oak tannin in linen tunic. The late Gary Trentham used linen to create quiver shapes. Merja Keskinen of Denmark creates geometric weavings of linen that appear three-dimensional. Our unexpected materials category was a broad one. Here are works of feathers. An altar of sorts by Dominic DeMar with an egg in the center. Louis Noss's First Snow incorporates feathers as well. Chris Drury has built a ladder and a basket of crow feathers. And in Breeder's Flock Ceremony, Sylvia 70 added trimmed feathers to her handmade paper bowl. Jute is another substance that has more uses than just the large ropes that are familiar to sailors. For 28 years, Naoko Sereno has chosen to unravel jute, once twisted for utility, to face its liberated fibers. What I once discarded, she says, the frayed ends, revealed an unexpected beauty when held against the light, fragile, porous, and filled with air. Gary Trentham's large untitled basket of jute doesn't share Sereno's airy ethos. Instead, it's solid and tightly wound. Stones are another intriguing element in which artists find potential. Here are stone narratives created by Sue Lottie, made of stones from the coast of East Riding in Yorkshire. Whether working in lead, linen, or stone, Lottie pursues qualities inherently given by the chosen substance, seeking an understated restraint, balance, tension, rhythm, an essential stillness. In her hands, stone and fiber need no translation. They already speak their own ancient elemental languages. In these works, Dorothy Gill Barnes has wrapped smooth stones in bark. And in these, Christine Joy has wrapped lava-like rocks with willow twigs. In Jeanette Linderstie's hands, seaweed takes a magical turn as baskets and weavings. that seem as if they arose from the sea. In this work, Hiroko Sato Pijanowski used Mizuhiki, a washi paper cord, and anodized aluminum foil to create an elegant jewel-like work. Viscose takes two forms in works by Ulla-Maja Wickman of Finland, who paints viscose strings, and Polish artist Władimir Saigon's woven circles of viscose, embedded with plastic tubing to maintain their circular shapes. Carolina Razaval of Chile creates works of coconut fibers. The last material ingredient we explored was repurposed items, re-envisioned to create art. Carol Sisson finds the potential in cloth tape measures. Francois Grosson finds sculptural potential in humble buff pads. While Abby Mackey takes discarded historic textiles sourced from flea markets in Barcelona. She deconstructs and reconfigures them, disrupting their original function to create new meaning, adding gold to suggest that viewers reflect on what we choose to preserve or let go. That ends our presentation. For more images of works replete with no end of ideas and innovations, check our website, catalog, and more videos on this YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us, and thanks again to Max at Eat, Cook, Run, Sleep, Repeat, and to our teams at Juice Creative and Space 67 who have provided technical assistance. We hope you'll join us at our fall exhibition in October. We'll be looking at artists and influences from North and South America.